Julie here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is Jupiter hour, Jupiter day, and the moon is 9 degrees Taurus, Venus 20 degrees Leo, and Jupiter in 19 degrees Cancer. The ascendant is on the galactic center, and the midheaven is 12 degrees Libra, ruled by Venus. Well, I want to talk about the Virgo eclipse, and because it's a solar eclipse, it usually affects solar figures, and it affects leaders, and it affects leaders in the large extent of that, because each and every one of us has a sun, and normally people say, "What's your birthday?" They mean, when was your sun at your birthday? Um, and so this is this is going to affect everyone, but it's going to affect the leadership abilities and the changes to our foresight, um, in the places in our life where we are leaders. So where is the sun in each everyone's in all charts, and also where is this the final decan of Virgo, and Virgo in one's natal chart. We're gonna have the solar eclipse right before the new moon, 21st September, and I think this is when the Jews celebrate the new year, but I'm not sure about this because they go by the lunar year. Um, so we talk about the 28 and 29 degrees of Virgo. The nodes are already going to be 17 degrees, so no longer the degree of toxins. And we're going to have a kite in the sky. Now, what I received, and this is going to be more of an energy reading, what I received um, for the solar eclipse, and I'm constantly receiving things around that, is a sense of embodiment. Um, and the very words or phrasing might be triggering, because the way that certain people are taught power is power without embodiment is basically powerlessness, and the way that people are taught embodiment um, has to do with something that is, how should I say that, something they may feel malleability around. And what I'm getting is that a lot of people are met with figures that have a sense of embodiment. And you want to think about Pisces and Saturn in Pisces, because those figures might arrive from there, even if you have placements in Pisces, and those figures are going to carry a sense of embodiment that is new. And what the leading figures are dealing with on a nervous system level and on a value level, the way that they have been tapping into power is being ketoed, and there is a dissolution of structures 12 o'clock from them. And so it looks like they are being purged, but that in fact is not the truth. They are being purged. The way, and this is if and only if the way that they have been tapping into power is that outdated version. Mars is going to be squaring Pluto. It's going to be Mars return for some prominent leaders, and I've talked about it in other videos. But Mars is going to be squaring Pluto, emphasizing that one's own sense of self is both malleable and the need to surrender, even if it's not bearing a Chiron in Aries or Pisces, the need to have the surrender that Neptune requires conflicts with Pluto in a way that we might want to tap into the times where Pluto and Neptune were squaring. And I would need to do another video because I need to do research about that. And when Pluto and Neptune will be squaring, which is the coming century. And so a lot of the meanings of Pluto and Neptune in this century were almost united. You can't have psychology without psychiatry and psychiatry without psychology. You can't have the nuclear process, okay, which is a mark of this century, without the dissolution of the core of the atom, without radiation. And so some astrologers even will ascribe radiation to Pluto and nuclear to Neptune. Okay, and neither is right or wrong, because these two are in harmony, and it's only through the friction that we're going to learn how to disassemble and unmelt and unmold the two. So what is required of each and every one of us where we are leaders is to tap into that future timeline and let go of the physical manifestation of the way we've been doing embodiment. And because we are going to move towards a collective. And Saturn Neptune always is a renewal in the way we have a structure of collective. And the structure is going to be around sovereignty. And so our sense of embodiment will have to apply, will have to fit to each and everyone's sovereign identity within it. And embodiment includes the lower astral. Embodiments includes cleansing and purging of what in the lower astral has been keeping us from being truly embodied. This is where sexual sovereignty, Lilith is going to already be 19 degrees, and Mars ruling it is going to be a major topic, because people have learned we're purging the Machiavellian timelines. Now, it's not to say we're going to utopia, it's just that is no longer serving the world, and we're going to have to tap into a sovereignty that encompasses sexual sovereignty in spirit and in matter, while being a collective in a different embodied way. So the outdated ways in which humanity has been doing embodiment, which is either each to their own or personality codes, is going to go through major transformation, where the embodiment is indeed important and the collective is important, but sexual sovereignty comes into the mix. And this is where a lot of people are going through a yod-shaped eclipse for the people, and for the leaders, they're still affected by that psychologically, or moon-like, where it's basically the emotional safety. And there is a purging of the way we were being safe. If people were being safe in certain type of constellations and human interactions that affected nervous systems and sense of embodiment, we are purging that, and what is required is to regain sexual sovereignty and sovereignty on all levels, including the psychic, to be a part of the collective. And this is why a lot of leaders are going to have this disruptive feeling, even though it's a kite shape, it's a transformative sense, but they're still experiencing the disruption from the eclipses with the moon. For the lunar eclipse, there was a total lunar eclipse in Pisces, and particularly the leaders that have Chiron and or Lilith in Pisces, in Aries. So being met with this new sense of embodiment invokes both curiosity, um, standing one's ground where never before one has had to stand their ground, or once has had the access to choice to stand their ground, and being well received by some, and being and having to face the friction by those that still want to maintain the old that is dissolving. And so those that tap into that might become aware that, hey, since before birth, they went through a certain programming and trajectory, and with the mirror image outside is as though there is a karma served, while within there was never an access to choice. And even when people were supposedly posed with a position to become conscious perpetrators, so to speak, that consciousness had to be presented with the opportunity to heal. And if they would heal, they would speak, which means that that choice was to begin with limited. And so when I'm talking about regaining access to choice, those very structures are not holding beyond 300 years. And that's going to be very relevant for the people at the echelons where they do think a millennia forward, 12 millennia forwards. You can't do that with the same old CIA, with the same old MK Ultra. And some of the civil war-like vibes in the CIA that are already begun, astrologically speaking, are going to be about that. And while that's not a utopia, it's definitely requiring, the Neptunian wealth is requiring sovereignty on all levels, and that is including sexual sovereignty on all levels. The attempts to gaslight around that, and it does entail, and when you set that intention trajectory, what's unfolding begins to dissolve, and you begin to tackle what has been blocking that, and that begins to dissolve as well. And there is a tension of it's basically relaxed arousal, but psychically, that is permeating the levels of neural activity that induce psychosis in some, to kind of think about it as the waves as you enter the sea. They're the waves, and when you cross those initial waves, you're in stable waters. And that's the sense of surrender and embodiment without losing the trajectory. It's kind of like safe sailing or smooth sailing across a very turbulent ocean. And it's a blue ocean also, wealth-wise, health-wise, and psychic spirituality-wise, because we're shedding the 450 years and 12 millennia that created certain adaptations, and even not only cloning, but the cloning is not in the process of the creation of an embryo only, but also in the psychic around that, and we're purging that. Now, for some people that might be overwhelming, and they might cross over, but for the most part, I feel that this is a regaining of the access to choice on that level, and it provokes and invokes a storm that is leading to peace. On a very immediate level, the things that one used to do to even align and be intimate require a different sort of embodiment. and the dissolution of the energy blocks that some people call perpetrators. They are basically energy blocks that interfere with the erotic rapport that is at the aftermath of the eclipse, particularly for Libra and Virgo ascendants. Yes, to some degree for Cancer and Sagittarius ascendants. Um, and so some people um, may have to face that. And for some, it's going to feel like they're dying uh, because an old self is dying. An old self is dying, the self that used to, reach orgasmic state by participating in perpetrator victim scenarios is being shed. And there's a friction with the B6 energy, which attempts to do another MK Ultra operation. But the very leaders are no longer on an erotic rapport. And this is the problem that they had. They tried to do the good old thing with the extortion cults, but whatever they say, up until Epstein and Detru, we're going to have an Alondra. For Frank Olson, we're going to have Dr. Miller. And that creates even hatred and disgust because a lot of people understand that they're arriving a fork in the road where if they take one trajectory, they're Dr. Mengele, and if they take another, they're Dr. Miller. And for some of them, they might even begin to understand that what they have, the elation they have been sensing, is an approximation of joy, love, eroticism, sense of belonging, wealth, well-being, rebelliousness. There is nothing underground in those same source funded, and suffice to say that there's nothing underground about that. And even the wealth, okay? And so it's not a choice between that which is boring and lifeless and that which is exciting and dangerous. And this is where some people are going to live, and some people are going to have approximations that end up with them either being purged or going through intense disruption or facing an end to a certain trajectory. Because what they are confronted with is a generation or the polar opposite of the same generation that has been as profound, as deep, as rebellious, as excited, as passionate, as sensual, as erotic, as safe, as free, but not with an approximation. And that friction is what this eclipse is about.